Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop Fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running.
It's hard to believe that we've been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies. All that said, producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes.
Becoming a Next Reel member gives you access to all sorts of additional and exclusive content. Plus, you're helping us keep the lights on. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership, where you can learn more about becoming a member, which costs a measly $5 a month, practically the same as one fancy coffee drink. And you get so much more.
Every month, we record a bonus episode exclusively for members. Those episodes cover movies from whatever series we're covering at the moment, or add to previous series.
Some movies we've covered that only members get to hear us discuss include The Blues Brothers,
The Russia House,
Naked Lunch,
Independence Day,
The Hot Rock,
and Relic, the better one. Plus, members get to vote on what we're going to discuss for those episodes.
We also record additional pre- and post-show content in regular episodes that only members get to hear.
Like conversations about similarly themed movies.
And answering listener questions from our live member chat.
Speaking of our live member chat, we record almost all of our episodes in Discord, where members can chat right along with us live.
Members get access to other members-only channels in our Discord community as well. On top of all that, members get all episodes a full week earlier than everyone else in a private Next Reel feed just for them that includes all the shows in the Next Reel family. The Next Reel, the Film Board,
movies we like, Sitting in the Dark, and more new projects on the way.
To top it all off, members don't have to listen to ads. We've already eliminated those annoying, dynamically inserted ads that, let's face it, we all hated.
We are listening to you.
We love podcasting for a living, and those ads help to pay the bills. Now, we're counting on you, dear listener.
We promise. We aren't going back to those terrible, dynamically inserted ads that don't relate to us at all. All we ask is that you consider supporting the Next Reel family of podcasts with a membership.
Again, it's $5 per month or $55 per year. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership.
thenextreel.com/membership. Get your access to early, ad-free episodes with bonus content, member bonus episodes, and access to member channels and live streams in Discord by signing up today. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Predator is over. It's showtime, kid.
Not assassins. Now. What are we gonna do?
in a part of the world where there are no rules.
We pick up their trailer at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages before anybody knows we were there. What do you mean we?
Deep in the jungle, where nothing that lives is safe.
You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt. Showtime, kid. Knock, knock.
An elite rescue squad
You're bleeding, man. I ain't got time to bleed.
is being led by the ultimate warrior.
We need the best. That's why you're here.
But now,
What's got Billy so spooked?
There's something out there waiting for us. And it ain't no man.
they're up against the ultimate enemy.
Holy Mother of God.
Nothing like it has ever been on Earth before.
She says the jungle just came alive and took him.
We cannot see it,
No blood, no bodies. We hit nothing.
but it sees the heat of our bodies and the heat of our fear.
Whatever it is out there, it killed Hopper. And now it wants us.
It kills for pleasure.
He was skinned alive!
It hunts for sport.
He's killing us one at a time.
We're all gonna die.
But this time, it's picked the wrong man to hunt.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
There are a lot of lines in this movie, and I only sent you one of them in our text last night, which I won't repeat here, but it is gold. It is Shane Black gold.
Before we start, this movie, early in the film, somewhat early, there is an Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liner as he throws the knife at the guy and says, "Stick around." When did that start? Do you remember the history of Arnold Schwarzenegger's one-liners?
Oh my goodness, what a fantastic question.
I feel like in I don't know if it counts. In The Terminator, he has "Stay here, I'll be back," and as he's in the police station, he looks around and then he comes back and crashes into the place with the vehicle on his search for Sarah Connor. "You're fired" in True Lies. I feel like, "See you at the party, Richter" was one, and it's not exactly the cheesy one-liner.
Let off some steam, Bennett, from Commando. Stick around, Predator. Hasta la vista, baby. How about "your luggage" from Eraser?
There's "I let him go" and "Remember when I said I'd promise to kill you last? I lied," both of which from Commando. And that was Commando, Raw Deal. Those were both before this.
So 84 was a Terminator. 85 was Commando. Remember, Sully, when I promised to kill you last. Predator was 87. If it bleeds, we can kill it. Big one. Running Man was "I'll Be Back."
Also this year.
In 87. Right.
Killian, I'll be back. Yeah.
Only in a rerun. No, that was not him. Only in a rerun.
Only in a rerun, kid. Yeah.
Yeah. Twins.
This one
also had
this one,
"I'll
Get
Be
to the
Back."
chopper. Get to the chopper.
Consider that a divorce. What movie was that?
What was that one?
It's Total Recall.
Total Recall, right, to Sharon Stone. Right.
How about "It's Not a Tumor"?
So I feel like it had to be the whole thing, even though it wasn't designed as like one of his cheesy quips, the "I'll be back" from The Terminator, that kind of became the start of these running jokes that he throws that line in a lot of subsequent movies. He said it in Commando, The Running Man, Kindergarten Cop, The Last Action Hero, which is my favorite, when he goes, "I bet you think I'm going to say something like 'I'll be back' or something. Well, rubber baby buggy bumpers."
And don't forget The Expendables 2. I'm back.
Expendables 2. Yes, Expendables 2. So all the Terminator movies. And so that's probably the line that, started all of this. And then it just kind of goes from there, because Commando, he had some lines. So I guess this, just the "stick around," that's like the super cheesy line, because he ends up getting a lot of those. Like, he's got the "I'll be back," other things, but the "stick around" is the cheesy Arnold Schwarzenegger line in this film.
The one I regret that didn't really take off was "Everybody chill." And other classics from Batman and Robin 1997. Okay, let's move on.
Oh, jeez. Yes, let's move on. Predator. Here we are.
Yeah.
1987. John McTiernan.
What do you want to say? I mean, it's just I love this movie. I love this movie irrationally, and it's not. I know there are problems.
I think we need to start like we did last week with Inner Space, talking visual effects. That's how we decided with this series. We should talk visual effects first, since
that's
this whole crux of this series is the 1988 Academy Award nominees for Best Visual Effects and some non-nominees that we've included, since there were only 2. This is the second actual nominee for visual effects in a year that has a lot of films with great visual effects. How do they work for you here?
It's so funny to watch this movie now and look at just how effective the alien vibrating space look works, even though it looks cheaper to me than it ever has. And yet it works so well. It is haunting, and it is such a comparatively easy effect for, displaying this complicated alien machine, and yet still showing illustrating threat in space. I mean, this whole thing is just, it's effectively Home Alone in the jungle. And, the fact that you can't see him is incredible. And then when you start to see him, it amplifies the just fantastical nature of his powers. And it's such an easy effect. It's amazing. It holds up incredibly well.
I'm actually curious now to go back and revisit the Predator sequels, the Alien versus Predator movies, to see how they're achieving it. I feel like as I've watched later films in the Predator world, and I've come back to this one, I always find that it looks pretty rough here, but still effective enough. Like, it actually pulls it off in a way where I can still kind of buy it, and I think that's something charming about that. It's I guess what they did is, they had an actor in a bright red suit running around doing all of the scenes. They removed it with chroma key. They shot the take a second time with no actors, essentially a plate is what we would call it, although I don't know if they were considering it that at the time, with a wider lens, a 30% wider lens. They would combine the takes, and the jungle from the second take filled in that empty space, but because it was wider, the image was tiny bit smaller, and so it actually kind of ended up creating that bend, that distortion in the shot, which I didn't realize. I think I thought that they were doing something else with it, because there's like this layered look to it, and it has kind of this funky feel, but largely I find it's effective. It's definitely more effective when it's closer than it is farther away. Sometimes when it's farther away and it's moving around, it doesn't look quite like it's correct in the environment. And that's something that always made me feel like they added it in later. And I don't know if I'm not exactly sure the reasons for that, but sometimes it works better than others.
I think I know what you're talking about, especially when Billy's like looking at it in the trees and you kind of see just a little bit moving. To me, those distance shots actually are cleaner. It looks more like a figure of a person and not bent space like it does when it's close up. Like when it comes over Arnold's shoulder and kind of in front of his face. There's one sequence that's just mind-blowingly cool in the last bit of the film. And that, compared to watching it jump from branch to branch at a distance, that felt to me like a choice. Like in order for you to really see that it's there, we have to make it much crisper, and that effectively separates it more from its environment. And it felt like a shot of necessity, or a composite of necessity, rather than art that they were creating with those close-up effects, which just still are fantastic to me.
There's also the, we get at the very beginning, briefly, we're in space, we see a ship arrive, and that's kind of like the start of things. It's pretty simple, but we have that as an effect. There's also the decision to kind of play around with the thermal vision, which is a fun little effect that they use. They couldn't actually use infrared film because it actually doesn't register the range of body temperature wavelengths. So they had to use an Inframetrics thermal video scanner because it does give off those heat images and everything. And so playing around with that, trying to find something interesting that could kind of achieve that look was a fantastic way to kind of introduce the way that this particular creature hunts, and seeing everything that it sees POV through this essentially, ideally, an infrared sort of thing as it was tracking the people was really cool. I always remember that about this and just enjoyed that element of it.
Oh, for sure. And the complexity of creating those shots is really understated in the movie. Like, it looks simple, but my goodness, like the compositing, the layering, taking the thermal effect and layering it back on top of the original jungle plate to give more definition, like all of that stuff to create something that feels like an effortless bit of tech that you might find in a hospital right now, right? Or on any soldier's thing. Like, it was really, really effective. And so much of the tech that they made feel real, both on behalf of the alien and the guys that are, being hunted by it.
It actually was an interesting surprise when you have the Predator take off its mask in that last fight with Schwarzenegger, and you actually get to see what its real vision looks like, and you see why it likely uses the infrared, because at least on Earth, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but it's almost like another version of an infrared but it's just like everything is kind of a red, and it's really hard for it to see where Schwarzenegger is. It seems like it really kind of has to rely on motion is the way that it looked.
What would that imply? That it's because to me it felt like, oh, we're going to take off the mask and all we see is red. That means all we see is heat, right? That the aliens might live on a colder place. It made me think that all of his that he was seeing, like maybe the temperatures were just naturally colder on his planet, and so he would be able to define temperatures differently if the scale was reset for his eyes, and that's what the helmet did, is just cools everything off for his vision so he can see probably more naturally.
Well, I think it's interesting, but in Predators, this is was that the third movie? Do they bring all those people to the Predator home planet? Or is it just the planet, the sport planet, where they drop everybody off?
I thought it was the sport planet. That was
I couldn't remember.
Was there. It's their safari zone.
Yeah. Okay.
That happens to be a whole planet.
Okay, yeah. Right. I like your idea. I think that makes sense.
Outstanding. Oh God, put a point up on the wall.
Last but not least, we have the Predator itself, when it actually is no longer hidden with its camouflage, whatever we're calling it, like the electronic camouflage that it uses. We actually get to see the massive, massive alien, which is great to see when it's finally next to Schwarzenegger and you realize just how big this thing is. I mean, it is massive. In a film full of muscles and testosterone, this is like, the apex predator. It's so big. It's not really a lizard sort of creature. It's more like amphibious because it doesn't have scales. It's just a very slimy, creature with a lot of claws, and then of course when it takes its mask off, you get the reveal of the mandibles, which is I think one of the defining characteristics of this creature. One of the coolest things when you get to see it actually looking around and doing its little roars and everything, hisses and stuff. Great creature.
It's amazing. And also, like, that's, I think in terms of creature design, that you get this creature that is mostly feels amphibious, and then its mouth is so insectoid, right? Like those mandibles, the way they kind of move and spread open. Oh God, it was so good. So good. We don't necessarily need to repeat the one-liner from Arnold, but it's perfect. It's perfect in this movie.
Exactly. His line is the opposite of how beautiful it is, because it's beautiful effects done by Stan Winston, who came on board here to work with this and kind of develop this creature, which is just so stinking cool. Just love it. So that's really the effects. I will save our conversation about, who do we think should have won as we get to the end of this series, because we've got these two we've added 2 non-nominees, RoboCop and The Princess Bride, that our members voted on. And we've also added The Lost Boys as a member bonus episode. So a lot of interesting 1987 films to talk about effects. So we'll have our conversation in the last episode about who should have won. But that leads us to our conversation about the movie itself. Where do you want to start?
It's not a terribly complicated story.
But I think let's start with the story, because it's actually an interesting structure. It's not a movie that's designed around an alien discovery or something. This is a film that, on the surface, when it starts, feels like we are entering a political action thriller. We have a troop that is designed to go in and rescue people, that comes down to the Amazon through the government's request. They come down here because they think they're going to be saving some troops that have been kidnapped by guerrillas that are hiding out in the jungle. And this is where, of course, Schwarzenegger ends up meeting his old buddy, played by Carl Weathers, who's an operative, and finds out over the course of the story, as they find the guerrilla camp, as they destroy the guerrilla camp, that, they were only 2 hostages there. And as Max says, these don't look like the sorts of people that we think they were. It looked like some other bigger thing was actually going on here. So the story sets up something that feels like, okay, we're going into the jungles, and there is one branch of the government using these people for nefarious ends because they actually have something else in mind. And so we're setting up like an interesting political thriller. And when they're finding these skinned bodies on their search for the gorillas and stuff, they're thinking that the gorillas are really disgusting people and have done all of this stuff. And it's building in a way where, if we didn't know it was an alien film, if we didn't see the predator arriving at the beginning, it totally doesn't feel like it. It feels very much like, what is going on with this kind of political thriller here. And it's only about a half an hour into the film that we start kind of getting the predator cam as he's watching and stuff. And suddenly it's like thrust into a different movie. And that's the thing I love about the structure of this story, is it sets us up for one thing. And these people, like, it really is that story, and those people who then just happen to get thrust into an alien survival film. And I think it's such a fun shift that we end up getting as this film moves along. Does the story strike you as a kind of, I know you said it's fairly simple and straightforward, which it is, but that aside, the way it's structured, what did you think?
Yeah, because it's tonally much more complicated than the narrative is, right? The narrative is, as you said, the guys go in they think they're doing one thing, it turns out they're doing another thing. But the tonal shifts are what's so interesting, because we get the hint that it's a science fiction movie in the very beginning. We get it then becomes a Tom Clancy movie, like a thriller in the jungle kind of, we're going to deal with diplomacy issues right now in that first sort of 30-40 minutes. And then it becomes a slasher movie, right? It becomes a horror movie after that, with some really fantastically grotesque stuff going on until it becomes a brawler at the end, where the guys are just fighting each other to the death. And I think that's the thing that makes this movie so interesting, that it tries to capture so many different cinematic schemas, and it does it really, really well. Like, it somehow still feels like it is of a piece. And the other thing that I think is worth celebrating, to me, that this parade of massive muscles, right? This is a bodybuilder parade, still feels relatively grounded once you get over the fact that these guys are so big. Like, they're just absurdly big. And I think that might just be the tonal difference in reminds you that this is not a Michael Bay movie, right? Because we get the hero moments when they all get off the helicopter, and then they are rendered small by their foe, and that holds up. Like, that doesn't feel to me like these guys are, their setup is bigger than life, and they are proven very quickly that they are not bigger than life, right? And I think that's the thing that I think is most interesting about it.
Yeah, I agree. That's why when we finally see the Predator, with no camouflage, and it's standing next to Schwarzenegger, and it's like a head and a half taller than Schwarzenegger, who already we've seen when he and Carl Weathers shake hands, and it's like they're already arm wrestling. They're just shaking hands. It's like ridiculous. Like, you need that wide angle lens to fit those biceps in the screen. It's just crazy. And then you see the alien. It's like, absolutely. You get this alien that is so much more ahead of the game as far as the way that it hunts, what it watches for, the way that it's using the trees and everything. And that's what makes it so interesting is these people, this group of soldiers, these, it never really defines what they are, if they're a branch of the military, but whatever they are, they're military commandos essentially who kind of go in to do this mission. And they're big, larger than life. We see them take on this group of guerrillas, which they're outnumbered. And then we see exactly just what this predator can do to them and how much more effective it is. And that's what makes it so interesting. And I love, like, one thing that stands out is like why this film works so well is we see the lengths they've gone when they realize it's the trees. They put tripwires and booby traps all over the place. And then they're waiting, and you have Dutch kind of very slowly step out into this cleared out area to look into the trees and watch for the alien to arrive. And he's very careful to step over all the little tripwires and being super careful. And he walks out there. And then suddenly the net that's behind him shoots up into the air because the alien had snuck up so completely quietly, nobody recognized it. Nobody knew it was there until it was already in the net. And it's like, and then of course it escapes and everything, but still, like, that's what makes it so exciting. Like, this thing is so much more advanced than they are. And it just makes it always exciting because it's like, compared, like they talk about how in the military, you've got the two sides, like who's got the better guns and all that sort of stuff. And we've seen what these people do. I mean, Jesse the Body Ventura at the time, when he's using Old Painless, it's like, that is ridiculous. That minigun is like, how can anything escape that thing? But here it is. And that's why it works so well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that makes this movie such a testosterone hit, is that these guys, they're giant and they are so overpowered for what they say they're doing, right? We just go in to rescue people. Like, we just go in to do, we don't, like, he has his whole thing. Like, we don't do assassination missions. Like, that's his jam. Schwarzenegger, they're the A-team. They go in to plant tripwires and play tricks and shenanigans, but they don't assassinate political activists. And then they end up going in with the kinds of weapons that are weapons specifically of war. just what they do to that poor jungle is also an ecological disaster, right?
It's not an environmentally friendly film. They pretty much take out the entire forest.
Yeah,
crazy.
Right. Kevin Peter Hall plays the Predator in the first two movies, and he is also Harry in Harry and the Hendersons. He is the monster in the closet.
He was the mutant bear in Prophecy.
Yes, he's in Prophecy for sure. So he very sadly died shortly, just within a couple of years after this movie and Predator 2, from AIDS-related pneumonia. He said that he had contracted AIDS from a blood surgery or blood transfusion in a surgery after a car accident and passed away very young, 35. So really sad. And you have to wonder, like, what that set environment was like, being this 35-year-old or 32-year-old on a set with these kinds of men and all of their guns. Like, what fun would that have been, like, making this movie?
And he's huge. I mean, he's 7'2".
Yeah.
So, he is scrawny probably compared to these people. But when you look at exactly how tall he is, you're like, okay, he may not have the muscles of Schwarzenegger, or I mean, even, one of these people's arms, he probably doesn't have this many muscles. But at the same time, he likely was the tallest person on set, just towering over everybody.
For sure. So really interesting.
Yeah, although he didn't get to do the voice of the Predator. Peter Cullen did the voice and the different vocalizations and everything. And he, of course, is most famous to in some circles, my circles for sure, as Optimus Prime. I just love the voice of Peter Cullen. It's a great voice. The one thing I don't ever like with the Predator is its laugh at the end sounds so human. It's, a minor complaint that I have, but largely I really do enjoy when you're just getting the quieter whispers of the alien as opposed to its human laugh at the end.
But wait a minute. That's his whole thing, is copying that's one of his special abilities, is copying the voice of others.
Except the laugh isn't a copy. That wasn't anybody's laugh.
Sure it
Whose
is.
laugh was that?
It was Billy.
That was Billy's laugh at the end? Are you sure?
That was Billy's laugh.
Have I never noticed that? Wow, okay.
I think we need to relitigate this after you've watched it again.
I'm going to have to, because I've always, maybe I just incorrectly mistaken it as its own laugh at that moment. And so, okay.
It sort of fades in and out. And by the time he starts running away, it is going bonkers. Like it's all sort of distorted. But I've always seen it as like, look at what you've done. You did all this and you even got me. But, I'm going to sort of replay the laugh of your favorite dude, and we're going to just see what happens. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Considering it plays back so many other people, I can totally see that. It's just I haven't put two and two together with that. So I'm glad that you clarified that for me. So thank you.
Does this earn another star? Did I just get another star for it? Because
I don't know
if a quibble?
It can't get any more stars. I already love this movie. It's crazy.
Okay. Noted.
Yeah, let's go through the team, though. Schwarzenegger, we've talked about a little bit already. He's Dutch here. And what we've talked about Conan the Barbarian. Is that all we've... and Terminator 2 on a Movies We Like episode.
Yep.
That may be it, though, huh?
It may be it. What is your... I mean, we know a lot of the Terminator. Oh, we did Jingle All the Way.
Oh, and Jingle All the Way as one of our holiday bonuses,
yeah,
yes.
That's one. What is your favorite, like, just to watch? No, not that you think is the best, but what is your favorite Schwarzenegger movie?
I mean, it would be one of either Terminator or Terminator 2. Those are pretty unequal footing for me.
Yeah, but those are also great films. Give me your guilty pleasure pick.
I don't... I mean, they don't have to be... Like, are you saying... Of the movies of his that suck, which do I like the most? Is that what you're saying?
Your words, not mine, but okay.
I mean, does The Running Man fit into that then? Because it certainly is dated.
It sure is dated. Possibly. I am thinking more about, and I'm notoriously not a watcher of like the Expendables movies. I don't know if they're any good. But for me, the ones that I go back to are movies like The Sixth Day and Eraser. And I think those are of lower esteem. And yet Eraser, I find really, really funny. And I get a kick out of the tech. I think, of course, one of the greatest hits, one of the greatest non-Terminator related hits of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall is the original. Total Recall.
But again, I don't think that fits something that you have to call a guilty pleasure. Like Total Recall, I think still is a good movie. Like that's a solid film.
Where do you stand on things like Red Heat?
I've never seen it. No.
Okay. Well, all right.
I will be watching it. I'm doing my Walter Hill chronological watch right now, so I will be finally checking Red Heat off the list. But I mean, I've also never seen Commando. I've never seen Raw Deal. Like, there's a lot of early Schwarzenegger I've never seen. I think looking at early Schwarzenegger, it would constitute Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, The Terminator, Predator, Running Man, Twins, Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop, T2, Last Action Hero. Things like that. So, and I saw Eraser once, never went back to that one. Same thing with End of Days, Sixth Day. I can't even remember if I saw Collateral Damage or not. I think that kind of hit a point where I just was losing interest. So
I think the deal is I probably lost interest after you did.
That could be.
So I probably saw a few more of these. than you did. And on the very, very top of the list are things like True Lies for me, and not Batman and Robin. That was
although you watched that one more than most people.
Why do you gotta out me like that, man?
I saw it a lot too, but that was because I was a projectionist at the time, and so ended up seeing a lot of bits of that.
This was your Honey, I Blew Up the Kids for me.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I like Arnold Schwarzenegger quite a bit in this movie, and I think he's fun, and he is extraordinarily large.
You know what I also enjoy about him here is, one, he's scruffy, and you don't often see that in his films where he's kind of got a scruffier look here. And two, by the time we get to the end, when he actually finally gets to the choppa, he is just exhausted and wiped out. Like, it is not, I mean, sure, he essentially won, but he is a broken man by the time we see him on the helicopter there and they're flying away. And that's something I really love about this ending. Like, this was hard. This he barely got out of, and he is like broken and beaten, and he looks like crap. And that's something I really, I think is an important element of this film. Like, for somebody who's as much a success as he is in his little kind of covert commando operations that he does here, this was something that he could barely get out of, and he barely did escape. And I really enjoy that with the ending of the film.
Yeah, right. Like, they make it hard. The whole thing is really hard. Yeah. And especially right in that middle bit of the film, everybody dies seemingly at once. Like, the Predator's just clipping them off one at a time. And I really like that too. Can we move on to Carl Weathers? Oh, Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers, Dylan.
Okay. So I like Carl Weathers. I'm a fan of Carl Weathers. And it's just, maybe it's that they took Carl Weathers and they were trying to build this case that for his character, that he is a former soldier who has been promoted into the land of the weasels, the administrators, right? Like, he's turned in his gun for a pen and a spreadsheet. That, I guess, is, I don't know. That's a weird image. Just administrators in the military just carry around pens and spreadsheets, like giant paper spreadsheets. And I don't know how well that case is made in the movie. They try, but his casting of it, like, maybe, is it possible Carl Weathers is too big to play the line between that character? Carl Weathers is also massive in this movie, just physically. He's bulked out. I
have no issue with that. I think that it plays well as somebody who served in Vietnam with Dutch. That whole standing arm wrestle moment that they have when they greet each other, I think plays. I think that actually kind of carries this sense of he's a big guy, but he's also getting a little soft. Like, he can't do the standing arm wrestle like he used to with Schwarzenegger. And I think that it works. And, we've talked about him a lot through the Rocky franchise. And so, I don't know. I feel like I buy that he's, like, it would have been weirder for me if it was somebody the size of Shane Black here. Like, I think it ends up playing as somebody who works in this cut, in this case. Okay. All right. I'll give it to you. You give me the laugh at the end, I'll give you Carl Weathers. It just is the thing that sits a little bit sideways to me. Like, he should have looked a little bit more like an administrator, but I'm okay with that. You're right. If it had been in a tie,
Shane Black, he's in a tie. I just imagine he shows up, like, he has his sleeves rolled up impossibly high. Like, there's no way those are actual sleeves. Those are sleeves those are stunt sleeves, because his sleeves, his long sleeve shirt sleeves, are rolled up almost over his shoulder, those sleeves. Nobody does that. They should be a casual 2-cuff roll up over his arm. Clearly, they were stunt sleeves.
If I had biceps like his, I would roll mine up over my biceps as well.
If I had biceps like his, Andy, I would rip the sleeves off my shirt.
You would Hulk out
in public. Okay. All right. So, Carl Weathers is great. We like Carl Weathers.
Yeah. Bill Duke plays Mac.
He's my favorite thing in this whole movie.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
Mac,
I like Bill Duke so much.
He kind of goes a little mad. he kind of loses it a bit after his best friend Blaine, Jesse Ventura, gets killed. Mac kind of loses it. He's got his little speech he gives at the moon, shares a drink from his flask with the dead Blaine and leaves the flask with him, and then goes on a killing spree when the alien shows itself. So Mac's your favorite. What do you love about Bill Duke here?
I love Bill Duke so much. I think he looks great. His performance is so stoic, and the way they set him up and put him in places in scene to be completely haunting and haunted in the jungle. Like he is, I find him totally magnetic every time he's doing something. And he also has he's doing the whole grieving bit because of his friend. Like he's the one who has an emotional arc in this movie. Nobody else really has much of an emotional thing going on besides fear. He actually gets grief, and I think that makes his character the most interesting thing in the movie.
Yeah,
maybe not the most fun, certainly not the most funny, but the most interesting.
He is a very interesting character. I absolutely agree. I enjoy that about him, that there's something more, like he's got this connection here, and he's drawn into this pursuit of this creature because of what it's done, and the way that it kind of breaks him, the fact that you can't see this thing, and the way that he starts being able to see it. And I'm always hoping at that final scene when he sees the alien in the tree and he points it out to Dylan, that he's actually going to be able to get closer. And the fact that, he's crawling along the ground and ends up, getting shot, always kind of disappoints me. I'm always hoping he'll get a little farther, but never does. He's great in it. And, Bill Duke turned into quite a solid director too. If you look at stuff that he did, like Deep Cover, which is a really, really great film from the early 90s. And then just, busy actor. And he's one of those people, I always forget how old he is. I mean, he's 80 now, but solid performance here.
With the exception of General Phillips, R.G. Armstrong at 70 when he made this movie. Bill Duke, I think, was the oldest in the cast. I should say, besides Peter Cullen, who did the voice, he was 45 when he did the voice of the Predator. But Bill Duke was 44. I'm lying again. Sonny Landham was 46 when he made this movie.
You just got to stop lying, Pete.
I'm lying about ages of everyone. I am 27 years old, by the way.
That's right. We have Pancho. He lasts almost as long as Dutch does. And it's really only because he gets injured by one of their booby traps that he kind of gets up getting dragged along through that the last part of the film. Pancho was fun, though. He was a fun character here in the film. I think that he brings some good energy to it. I don't know. Richard Chavez plays Pancho. He's one of those people who pops up in things, but not enough for me to really remember him in anything. In fact, looking at his list, he was a detective in Witness. Other than that, I don't think I've seen much of his stuff. Maybe some TV episodes where he was like a guest.
Yeah, that's pretty much how his career ended up. And it looks like the last thing he did was in the late 90s, and he has not been working as. I think he's still alive, as far as I know. He's 72.
I think he's just retired.
Yeah. When do you want to talk about The Body?
Well, he's next. Jesse the Body Ventura. This was definitely in his era of seeing him on the WWF before it became the WWE. And, he was always kind of fun to see in this era. And I'm trying to think, when did he stop doing his wrestling? It was after this, right? Retired? No, right before this. He retired in '86 from his professional wrestling career. Did his acting for a bit, and then, of course, went into politics in '99.
Yes. 38th governor of Minnesota. So we have two governors in this movie.
Yes. He, of course, has one line in here that, always is a little more cringe heavy in modern times, when they're on the helicopter. But other than that, I just love Jesse Ventura here. He's so much fun, and it's just, that gun is ridiculous. And that's one of the reasons I just love his character so much.
It's funny. He is killed rather early in the movie, and it I wonder if it was just like too much. If he was too much, is it possible he was too much? And we needed less Starface in this movie because these other guys, besides Schwarzenegger and to some extent Carl Weathers, the other guys were actors and not they didn't have the fame, I think, coming into the movie that Jesse Ventura did. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons they killed him early.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing because, and this is, I'm sure, the battle that you always have as a director, as a casting agent, as the team putting together a film where people are slowly getting picked off one at a time in any sort of horror movie. It's like, do we save the faces for later? Do we kill off a face because people are expecting the face to last longer? And that is kind of what it felt like here. Like Jesse Ventura is the second one to get killed after Shane Black, who wasn't a face. And we kind of would like to see Ventura last a little longer, but then he gets killed, and that kind of pushes Mac into his crazy headspace, and everybody's now kind of trying to figure out what this puzzle piece is and what to do. And that, I think, ended up being kind of an interesting element of this film, that, you know, this is a person with an insane gun, he's a recognizable face, and he can't even last. And that's, I think, just one of those things that kind of steps up the kind of the tension within the film.
How did he die in The Running Man? He was Captain Freedom in The Running Man this same year.
And he's fighting. He's Captain Freedom, and he had won in a previous match, and he's the one who has to go against Dutch toward the end. So they have to go mano a mano toward the end of the film, if memory serves.
So he doesn't die in Running Man?
I think he does. I think Schwarzenegger has to kill him, right?
Oh, okay. Well, I don't actually recall. But it just was interesting to me that I think he has a similar kind of like a smaller role, but if he makes it to the end, that might throw my whole thesis to the wind.
Yeah, he had retired is the whole story, is like he had been a stalker, he had retired, and because Ben Richards is doing so well, they have to bring him out of retirement, and people are so excited to have Captain Freedom come back, and this is the one where they doctor the footage to show Captain Freedom kill Ben Richards.
So he doesn't die. He gets all pissed off, right? And he stomps out?
He didn't even get to go in there, I guess. I'm trying to remember now. Did he go in? I don't think he does go in there.
Interesting. All right. Well, clearly we need to do The Running Man.
I can't remember. I feel like he kills Captain Freedom, but they have to... They doctor the footage to make it show like Captain Freedom is the one who actually won. I can't exactly remember. Something like that. Anyway, that's that final act in that film before Ben Richards makes it out and takes on Killian.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's an interesting thing, especially that they come back to back, these two movies. He's got a fascinating part in this movie. He's got that nonsense gun and, big mouth, and he has a good death. His chest blows up. That's cool. Ooh.
It was a good death, but he didn't get to do much fighting. And that was always, one of those things that, I mean, the Predator, shoots him, and that's kind of it. We don't really get much more from him. And, I think we get a little more with some of the other characters, but he is one where I guess it just goes to show just how much more advanced the aliens technology is, and it's a bummer. We have Billy, Sonny Landham plays Billy. He is an indigenous American. He's a tracker. He's a scout. Felt a little tropey to have the Native American character be the one who was the scout. And, he does his little last stand at the end, stripping himself of all of his weapons and just going bare skin, slicing his own chest. It all felt a little tropey with what they were doing, but I still really enjoy the character of Billy.
He started as a porn actor. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
He did. He was a porn actor, and then he made his transition to Hollywood to do The Warriors and Predator, obviously 48 Hours, Lock Up, Action Jackson. He's been in a lot of stuff, but I totally agree with you. It's an interesting thing. He did not make it, but he did run for governor of Kentucky. So we almost had a
triumvirate here.
Of muscle-bound political spectacle in Predator. So, That sucks.
He sadly passed away in 2017, but I do enjoy him here. Again, it is just one of those things I kind of wish it didn't feel a little tropey with the way that they play him here. But still, I mean, when he does laugh, when he finally cracks a smile and laughs at Hawkins' terrible jokes, it's fun, and it's crazy because I enjoy his laugh there. It's just crazy that I've never caught on that is his laugh at the end.
Yeah.
And I guess that does bring us last but not least to Hawkins.
Speaking of Hawkins, yeah, here we go.
Little Shane Black.
Here's our man. He was 25 years old when he made this movie.
Crazy. Just crazy. And let's see, I guess he'd already sold his script to Joel Silver. And I guess that's why Joel Silver then brought him on to play in this film, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is my understanding.
So funny.
So, I mean, so just talking about him as an actor, he's funny. He's funny in this movie.
Yeah, I think so.
I found him, I thought he was great comic relief. I like the whole concept that he's like, his entire vibe is just trying out bits on people that aren't generally very good and are off color enough. And I think that makes it funny when Billy finally laughs because nobody else laughs. It's
only with Billy. He only does it twice, and it's both times with Billy.
Oh, the first one's with Billy too. So I just like the whole conceit that's his thing is trying out bits. Now it's even better because it's trying out bits on Billy.
Trying to get Billy to laugh, essentially.
Trying to get Billy to laugh. So I like his whole thing. He doesn't have a whole lot to do in the movie. As part of
because he gets killed first.
He does lose it first. He's dragged off and dismembered. But
it was interesting because he proves himself one of the team. He's the radio operator. He deals with all that sort of stuff, but he also certainly seems capable in a firefight. But then what's interesting, when Anna runs off and he runs after her and catches her, like the way that he reacts, it's not like, you idiot, like, and slapping her and stuff like that. He's like, please, come on, don't do this. Like, yeah. I was genuinely surprised the way that he reacts to that moment with her, where it's like, kind of like, a friendly pleading to not do this because it just makes it that much more complicated. And perhaps he thinks somebody else on the team might do something, be a little more aggressive. But I was like, that's actually kind of an interesting character moment that we have for him. And it's a very small moment, but it was an interesting one.
Yeah, it seems generous to give a moment, to even have a moment like that in a movie like this.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's good.
And then that leads us to Anna. This is Elpidia Carrillo, who plays the one female gorilla who is caught by them. They don't kill her. They kill everybody else. They take her, perhaps to get information. And of course, she is the one who witnesses Hawkins getting killed. And she says the jungle came to life and all of this sort of stuff. And she is the one who also survives and gets to the choppa, just as Dutch said, and makes it out of here alive. What do you think of Elpidia Carrillo as Anna?
Well, she's great. I thought she was wonderful, but she's also, plot device, Book of the Vampire. Like, she's the one who outs this is what we think is going on. This is the history. This is what the people believe. Like, she's kind of the book of lore. And I think that makes, it makes it fine, but it's not much of a meaty part. Not that it needs to be a meaty part. It's just not a meaty part.
It's pretty minor, but it's fine. It works for the film. It never has to turn into a love interest. And I was very grateful for that, because it very, very much could have been that sort of thing. It plays as she's somebody who has information, talks about its blood, all that sort of stuff. Like, she is the one who kind of seems to catch on a little bit and gives them tips. And I liked that they at least gave her a little bit of agency in that regard.
Yeah, for sure. And, she'd been working since the 70s, and she's done a lot of stuff. She's been in a lot of stuff. Stuff that, I feel like I have probably seen her in. I know I've seen her in and don't necessarily recall. I just, was not looking for or whatever. A lot of TV, special guest on a lot of TV. So, and obviously she was in some part in Predator 2, which I haven't watched in a long time.
Small cameo role, yeah.
Yeah, a little cameo.
And she was in Salvador, which we talked about in our Oliver Stone in the 80s series.
Right.
So, yeah, somebody who, is Mexican by birth, but as is so often the case, Hollywood loves casting people of particular ethnicities to just cover any ethnicity that kind of where it fits the mold. And so she's taken a lot of roles like that. But I enjoy her here enough. I enjoy her. I just wish that she was given just a skosh more to do,
Yeah, me too.
The script was born because Jim and John Thomas heard people talking about in Hollywood after Rocky IV came out that the next thing Rocky Balboa can fight, since he's beat all the earthly opponents, he's going to have to fight an alien if they make Rocky V. And they thought, hey, that's a great idea for a movie. So they took that idea and ran with it. They wrote a script called Hunter, which it generally focused more on a band of alien hunters initially trying to find different species to fight and target. They eventually narrowed it down to just one alien hunting the most dangerous species, humans. And then of the humans, the most dangerous man, of course, combat soldier. And because in the early 80s, there was so much going on in Central America, they figured that would be a great place to have some special force troops that they could fight. They could not get anybody to look at it, so they actually slipped the script under the door of 20th Century Fox producer Michael Levy, who liked it, brought it to Joel Silver, and who had done Commando with Schwarzenegger and brought Schwarzenegger on. I guess at the time, the script still only had one man fighting the alien, and so Schwarzenegger's idea was, it would be nice if it was a team, and so that helped, and that got him on board, and that's really kind of how we got this whole thing, and I think it's really fun. They did, in the process of developing this, originally cast Jean-Claude Van Damme to play the Predator, but he was so short to the rest of these people that it just didn't make sense. He was big, he could do all the great moves and everything, but not big enough, so they needed somebody bigger.
That would have been a very different movie.
Yeah, I mean,
I wonder, actually, now that I say that, how many different movies, how much of a different movie that would have been.
Well, the alien would have been doing splits a lot up at the trees.
Is that wrong? Is that so wrong? Is that wrong now? It wasn't wrong before, and now is it wrong?
Oh, man.
More splits, please.
Yeah, right, exactly. I think, it's always fun to kind of look at how these things get made. And then, of course, John McTiernan is brought on to direct it. This is, early in his career, but you kind of forget he had not done much before this. There was a film in 1979 that he did called Watcher, which I'm not very familiar with. And then he did Nomads in 86, the year before this. Did you see that one? That had Pierce Brosnan, Leslie Ann Down, and he wrote it also.
No, maybe I saw it, but I do not recall.
It involves a French anthropologist who's an expert on nomads. He stumbles across a group of urban nomads who turn out to be more than expected. It's one that I've never seen. I'm kind of curious about it, just to see if it's any good. But it's interesting. Like, he had done so few things, and then along comes Predator. This is the film that kind of really pushed him into the upper echelon of action directing at the time, because then he'd go on to do Die Hard and The Hunt for Red October, and then, of course, Medicine Man, which wasn't as good as it should have been. Last Action Hero, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Thomas Crown Affair, 13th Warrior, Rollerball, and Basic. And that's it. Short filmography.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, do you feel like this fits into kind of the McTiernan vibe? We've talked about Die Hard, the two Die Hards, and Thomas Crown Affair on the show. I mean, how does this fit in with what you expect from McTiernan?
But just about exactly. You know what I mean? Like, this definitely feels. I mean, it's the challenge is the jungle, right? That's the thing that feels out of sorts for McTiernan, because he spends time like in cities, right? The stuff that he does is not typically jungle bound. And so, but I think the stories, the action, the way the camera moves, I mean, it feels very Die Hard to me, frankly. Like maybe it's because they were made close to each other. Like it feels very sort of tonally similar, the way he uses space, the way he uses, in Die Hard and Red October, the way he uses small space, the way he puts the camera in certain places and plays with focus to draw attention so effectively. Like I just feel like I get a sense of his eye, like I'm watching the action through his eye. I think it really generally really works right up until Rollerball.
This definitely was an example of a producer hiring a new director to direct his first studio film, and one where Joel Silver saw that he's capable. That first film, Nomads, might not have been received well, but it had enough directing acumen there for him to say, well, we could hire this guy and then kind of control him. And I think that's always been the case. We certainly have really seen that grow to ridiculous lengths with the way that Feige is running Marvel these days. But I think it was still happening at the time. Find a new up-and-coming director who looks like they could handle it. We don't have to pay as much for the budget. This wasn't a huge budget action film. And they liked what he did. They were happy with the dailies that were coming back, and so they kept him on board. It's just amazing. And it's just interesting because for a first studio film, like you look at some of the Marvel films and it doesn't necessarily feel like it has as much of that director's voice as this one seems to with what McTiernan would be drawn to with his action films.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's the same model, right? Hire a young, untested director and give them whatever they need to make this movie. In some cases, obviously have big talent like Schwarzenegger, who's in there saying, I like McTiernan. Obviously, they are fans and friends of one another, and so movie gets made. But it is the fact that it feels so much more like a McTiernan movie than big directors' Marvel movies feel like Marvel movies, right? They don't necessarily always feel like, the director's hand is on them. And this feels like a McTiernan movie to me.
Yeah. I think the action, but also not just the action in and of itself, but we're in the jungles and it feels like he knows that it's important to direct this ostensibly science fiction film a little bit like a horror film. Like, dark spaces you can't necessarily see around the corners because there's so much growth everywhere. The alien is hidden anyway. Like, I feel like he knows how to direct the action in a way that just makes this forest constantly feel unsafe. And I think that lends a lot to this, especially when you have a cast of, half a dozen really, really large men. You feel like they are the last girls, essentially. Like they
final girls.
You feel like they can't compete, and that's I think a challenge to do. And I think he pulls off.
Yeah, I think so too. That's a great way to put it. That he has diminished these giant men in such a way that we feel scared for them.
Yeah. Solid movie. Really enjoy this one. I'm glad that we've added it to the list. I'm somewhat curious to add the other Predator films to our list at some point. I think it'd be fun to kind of go through the list. Maybe not the Alien versus Predator films, but certainly the Predator films would be fun to look at. We'll see.
That's exactly what I did. I haven't watched them yet, but when we put this on the list, I picked up the collection of the Predator movies. And so I've got the set. And so I need to just power through them because I don't remember the other ones as well as I remember this one. This one felt like coming home. The other ones are still a little bit foreign.
I don't remember liking Predators that much. I really was disappointed with what Shane Black did in The Predator. We talked about that on a Film Board episode. I just was not happy with that one at all. Predator 2 is the one I remember very little of. So that is the one that I think of all of them, I'd like to revisit sooner than later, just to, like, the two things that I remember from that is, obviously you've got the alien skull in the ship at the end that Danny Glover sees, and the other one is, like, I can't remember who the bad guys are, or the not really bad guys, but the criminals that he's up against. It's like crime lords or something, and I just remember that they're all sitting in their car smoking, and they open the doors, and it's just like huge wafts of smoke coming out. It was kind of a joke.
That's what you remember from.
That's what I remember.
Movie.
Like I know, strange little detail.
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyway, yeah,
all
and
right.
then of course Prey, which absolutely would probably be my
extraordinary
top
favorite
next to this one, sitting side by side.
Yep, for sure.
Well, I guess that's it. So we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Wolf Samuels, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at d-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm. And if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. All right, so I feel like we just teased right into our sequels and remakes. That's all of them.
Right. All the Predator sequels, there are a number, and including, although I didn't see anything about it, but I've heard them talking about I guess we're calling it a prequel sequel, a follow-up to Prey, which would be interesting to see them do. I think that they liked the idea of doing something similar that wasn't necessarily dealing with that same era, but was like decades later. So I don't know. I'm curious what they do.
Oh, you can totally see that, right? That just unlocked the story of Predator's influence on civilizations over time. I think that is fantastic. What a great idea. They probably won't be able to make something that lives up to what's in my head, but man, that Dan Trachtenberg nailed Prey. Just nailed it.
Well, that was something that I had forgotten from this film, is that whole story that Anna talks about, how there is this history of, people being taken. Like, she actually goes through this idea that this is something that has been happening for centuries now with my people here. What did she call it? I can't remember. She had a name for it or something, but the demon who makes trophies of man.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is
really
that
surprising
part of the movie where suddenly she knows how to speak English. You might recall.
Yes. I do remember vividly. That's a really great point because, and I had that same thought that, everything that comes after this, all the other Predator movies, as dumb as they are all built on essentially that line.
Yeah, exactly. And the ones before, which I think that's an interesting element with this. And then, of course, it even ties into the Aliens versus Predator comics and then the movies and how these are by nature a hunting race, and they are going out to just take on the biggest, baddest, meanest of whatever the species happen to be. And, that, of course, spawned that whole series of comics. And then, of course, the movies, plenty of video games. It is a franchise that has found legs in many places because it's effective.
We are here for awards.
Indeed.
How did it do otherwise in the awards season?
Again, like Inner Space last week, these are films that I think are designed to be audience pleasers. And if they happen to get award nominations, then all the more, thrill for the people involved. This one had 3 wins with 6 other nominations. We are here for the Academy Awards. As we've said, it did get nominated for Best Visual Effects, but lost to Inner Space. Over at the Saturn Awards, it was nominated for Best Science Fiction Film, but lost to RoboCop. Best Actor, Schwarzenegger was nominated, but lost to Jack Nicholson in The Witches of Eastwick. That's another one that could fit on our list of special effects films. Alan Silvestri won Best Music, and it lost Best Special Effects to RoboCop. At the BMI Awards, it was nominated for the BMI Film Music Awards. Silvestri won that. At the Hugo Awards, we just talked about that in our last series, Best Dramatic Presentation, but lost to The Princess Bride. The NAACP Image Awards, Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Motion Picture, Bill Duke, but lost to Mario Van Peebles in Heartbreak Ridge. And last but not least, it was nominated at the Motion Picture Sound Editors Golden Reel Awards for Best Sound Editing Sound Effects, and it won.
All right. So you said it. It was designed to be an audience pleaser. Was the audience entertained, Andy? Did they throw their dollars at this movie?
McTiernan had a budget of only $15 million for this film, plus $3 million for prints and advertising, for a total budget of $48 million in today's dollars. The film opened June 12, 1987, opposite The Witches of Eastwick, The Believers, and $1 Million Mystery. This landed in the number 1 spot and stayed in the top 20 for 7 weeks. The movie went on to earn $59.7 million domestically and $38.5 million internationally, for a total gross of $262.4 million in today's dollars, which lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $2 million, setting the franchise up for success.
I guess you like it when the little guy wins sometimes. Am I right?
It's so funny, though, because looking at this film now, you don't think of it as the little guy, but you realize in the scope of things that, this really was kind of the little guy. I mean, Joe Dante had $27 million to make Inner Space. We talked about that last week. And here is this film, $15 million. Yeah, it is the little guy.
Amazing. It is the little guy. All right. Well, I'm thrilled that we got it on the list, that we have an excuse in this award season spectacle to talk about this one as a mashup of all the great films in this particular series. Awesome.
Solid one. Absolutely solid. Well, we'll be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, the first of our member-selected non-nominees that perhaps should have been Rob Reiner's The Princess Bride.
Grandfather's here.
Can't you tell me I'm sick? He'll pinch my cheek. I hate that.
Maybe he won't.
Hey, how was the sickie? Huh? I brought you a special present.
What is it?
It was the book my father used to read to me when I was sick, and I used to read it to your father. And today, I'm going to read it to you.
It was a time when life didn't seem so complicated.
Marriage is what brings us together today.
What?
What?
I'm killing myself once we reach the honeymoon suite.
Wouldn't that be nice?
A courtly age of gentle conversation.
I will always come for you.
But how can you be sure?
This is true love.
Oh, no. Is this a kissing book?
No. Actually, there was a lot of treachery, peril, and revenge.
Prepare to die.
never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
There were affairs of state.
And I've got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wedding to arrange, my wife to murder, and Gilda to frame for it. I'm swamped.
And affairs of the heart.
My Wesley will always come for me.
Your Wesley is dead.
I've seen worse.
Bye-bye, boy.
Have fun storming the castle.
It's more than dirty.
What's the difference? We've got him.
Think it'll work?
It would take a miracle. Goodbye.
It's a story of love. A tale of adventure. It's as real as the feelings you feel.
We're kissing again.
Someday you may not mind so much.
The Princess Bride. Not just your basic, average, everyday, ordinary, run-of-the-mill, ho-hum fairy tale.
It is hard to believe we've been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You're telling me producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a lot of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals links to the source material for all of our adapted film discussions. Purchasing through our links supports the show.
In Season 13, we explore various awards categories and the films nominated in them.
We wrapped up our 1940 Best Picture series with adaptations of Mice and Men from John Steinbeck and Wuthering Heights from Emily Bronte's novel, not to mention the play Dark Victory by George Brewer Jr. and Bertram Bloch.
The 1947 Academy Award adapted screenplay series featured Anna and the King of Siam, based on Margaret Langdon's book, plus The Best Years of Our Lives, Brief Encounter, and The Killers.
The 1952 cinematography nominees included Death of a Salesman and A Streetcar Named Desire, A Place in the Sun, based on both a play and a book, and Strangers on a Train, based on Patricia Highsmith's first novel.
So many great movies based on books and plays, like Beckett, The Pumpkin Eater,
A Boy and His Dog, Rollerball,
The Princess Bride, Congo, The Scarlet Letter,
Jackie Brown, The Deep End, The Gray, The Woman in Black,
and Top Gun Maverick, which I'm very much looking forward to revisiting.
Get the source books at thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read or reread from the movies we've covered. Visit thenextreel.com/originals today. Letterboxd, Andy. Oh, man, you better give it 5 stars or else the alien will come back and skewer you on his hand knives.
Is that like the Santa Claus, like, be good, or Santa Claus is always watching?
Right.
The alien's coming for you if you don't give him 5 stars. Yeah, this is an easy 5-star and a heart. I have seen this movie so many times, especially in those late 80s. Just love it to pieces. So 5 stars and a big old heart for me. Throbbing in my hand, ripped out with the spine and skull.
Yes, there's Andy, standing high in a tree branch, waving a skull and spine in the air like a flag of pride.
In one hand, a beating heart in the other.
I'm going to give it 5 stars too. You know what? I'm really ashamed, because when I went into my Letterboxd, this is one of the movies that I just, when I was just logging that I'd watched movies, the default was, I saw this movie, so I'm going to give it 3 stars as a start. I didn't even really think about how much I really like this movie. So I went in and I had to erase that, Andy. I had to erase it in shame and embarrassment, because it's not true. This is a 5-star movie, and I'm sorry to anyone who stumbled on my initial ranking and was offended. I'd like to take this moment to apologize.
And they've subsequently judged you all these years.
I've been judged all these years. Yes, it's a 5-star movie.
Well,
there you go.
It's a solid one. So that will land 5 stars and a heart over on our account for the show at The Next Reel. And of course, you can find me at Soda Creek Film. And you can find Pete at Pete Wright. So follow us over there and let us know what you think. Or let us know over in our Discord community. That's right. What did you think about Predator? We would love to hear your thoughts. Just hop into the Show Talk channel over there in our Discord community, where we'll be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
Okay, so I have the low one, so I'm going to go first, and we're going to climb up to yours.
Okay.
All right. 4 stars. That's as low as I was willing to go. I didn't want to even see what was below 4 stars. And this comes from Matt Singer, who says, me, taking my family to the mall the day after Christmas. We move, 5-meter spread, no sound. Me, when the trip to the in-laws is going badly. So you cooked up a story and dropped the 6 of us in a meat grinder. Me, to my daughter when she says she's too sick for school, then spends the whole day bouncing in bed and screaming, you set us up. It was BS, all of it. Predator forever. That's exactly my experience. 100%.
So good. Just love it. Well, I've got a 5-star from Dirk H. There is this shot in the beginning of this film where Arnold shakes hands with Carl Weathers. The amount of biceps that fill the screen symbolizes everything about this film. This is from start to finish a professionally made and perfectly executed testosterone-filled muscle movie, and I freaking love it.
Hallelujah. And I feel like there's a series here at some time in the future of perfectly executed testosterone-filled muscle movies. Celebrating the absurdness of the potential of the physical form.
I think this is definitely an 80s era series.
Yeah. Everything we do has to make you look at the people on the film and say, really? Right. That's the series title. Really? I can't wait. Totally here for it. Thanks, Letterboxd.